Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And thank you also to all Manitobans who keep doing the right things and continue to keep themselves and others safe through physical distancing and following the advice of Dr. Roussin, our Chief Public Health Officer. Manitoba continues to keep the COVID curve flat, and that is because Manitobans are following the fundamentals that are necessary to do that. And it's because of Manitobans that we've been able to begin to slowly and to carefully restart our economy. Manitobans are facing this challenge together. They're protecting our physical health, our mental health. They're protecting also our economic health and our very future as we work together to beat this thing. And your government's been working hard too to do our best to help protect our most vulnerable Manitobans. We know that one of our best defenses against this pandemic is fighting this together, but at the same time, ironically, staying somewhat apart. I know that's been hard for many of you, and I know it's been hard for me too. But I know that it's the right thing to do, so let's keep doing it. We know the vast majority of Manitobans are following physical distancing rules. They're following the public health orders. But as we continue to safely restore our services, we have to look, sadly, at additional measures to help protect Manitobans. And our primary area of focus has been ensuring that there's a strong public education component in these new challenging times. We understand that people have had to change their traditional ways of doing things, their traditional habits, their behaviors have had to change. We all understand that, but some of us need reminding. As more businesses gradually reopen, there may be a need for more enforcement as we continue to ensure the health and safety of all Manitobans. And today, we're announcing the additional enforcement of public health orders by including health and safety officers under Workplace Health and Safety, inspectors under Liquor, Gaming and Cannabis Control Act, Manitoba Agriculture inspectors, and provincial park patrol officers, among others. This is in addition to other agencies that are able to enforce these orders, including the RCMP, Winnipeg Police Service, Brandon Police Service, and other municipal police services, community safety officers, First Nation safety officers, and bylaw enforcement officers. In all, Manitoba will have more than 3,000 personnel who are able to enforce orders related to COVID-19. Au total, le Manitoba comptera plus de 3,000 employés capables d'exécuter les ordonnances liées à COVID-19. And as part of our team, we also have hundreds of volunteers participating in Operation Safe Apart. And I want to say thank you to those volunteers. They include volunteers from Citizens on Patrol, Bear Clan, City of Winnipeg Community Safety Ambassadors. Thank you for your efforts. These folks are out in our communities focusing on educating Manitobans principally about staying safe in public and about physical distancing as well. In the coming days, the Help Next Door Manitoba website and app that we established here early on in the COVID battle to solicit volunteerism in our province and to assist those in need is going to be updated. And it'll be updated to include a section that will assist in matching volunteers with local municipalities who need some assistance in respect of enforcement and education as well. Further information will be available at https helpnextdoormb.ca. I want to also thank those volunteers again because what they have been able to do is to assist us in educating Manitobans better and repeating those lessons around the importance of physical distancing, about keeping the size of group gatherings down so that we can all keep ourselves and others safe. And thank you again for your efforts. This is, of course, especially important as we head into a long weekend where the forecast is pretty good. The May long weekend is the unofficial start of summer for a lot of Manitobans, and many people use it to open the cabin or to head to one of our beautiful provincial parks. And it looks like we're finally going to get some nice weather here Saturday and Sunday, so I know that many Manitobans will want to get outdoors. So if you've got a campsite booked, or if you're heading to the cabin this weekend, please make sure you limit any additional contacts. We're encouraging you to be COVID careful in cottage country. Nous encourageons tout le monde à faire attention au COVID-19 dans la région de chalet. Gas up in your home. Make sure you have all your supplies with you so you can avoid making any extra stops along the way. Stay home if you feel sick, because getting ill in a smaller center could be overwhelming to a smaller local health facility. And we've heard from the Mayor of Kenora, this is a concern in his area, and I know it's been a concern expressed by other community leaders in our province as well. So do your part and make sure that you give that confidence to those in the area you're traveling to, that you're going to be keeping them safe too and protecting them as well as you protect yourselves. And of course, remember always to practice social distancing and avoid gathering in large groups, just as you would here in Winnipeg and around the province. This also applies to campgrounds and parks. Limit your socializing. Don't gather in groups larger than 10, and avoid prolonged contact with other campers that are not part of your smaller group. By doing this, we can ensure that everyone enjoys the long weekend safely, so we can have many, many more long weekends with our family and friends. Nous voulons que tout le monde profite de longues fins de semaine en toute sécurité afin que nous puissions avoir beaucoup plus de longues fins de semaine avec notre famille et nos amis. We're dedicated to keeping our COVID curve flat, and as we do, we'll ensure that all of us and our loved ones have a healthy Manitoba today and for many generations to come. And we'll also ensure that we can continue, as Dr. Roussin has said, to take steps to reduce the restrictions that have been necessary during these last few weeks and months to protect all of us. That will assist greatly in helping many who are out of a job right now to get back to work, and many small businesses to get back reopening. It's heartbreaking when we hear of small businesses that have had to close their doors. We want to make sure that we keep doing the things we have to do to support not only our small business sector, but the people who work within our small businesses, so that they can have the chance to get back to work and support themselves and their families. Manitoba's been the home of hope for over 150 years now, and it'll continue to be the home of hope. So stay positive, encourage one another, help each other, be patient. We will be back, and together we'll beat this thing. I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to our reporters, you will have one preliminary question and one follow-up question. Up first this morning from City News, Jonas.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Jonas Gilbart, City News. As we head towards the long weekend and circling back on some of those concerns from Kenora Mayor Rickford, what is your message to Manitobans that may be looking to head to northwestern Ontario over this May long weekend?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's really important we remember we have a really close relationship with northwestern Ontario, as Manitobans know and appreciate, as they do with us. And we want to keep that relationship going, and we want to strengthen it. And so we have to make sure to treat our friends and neighbors in northwestern Ontario the way we'd like to be treated. And that means keeping ourselves safe by helping to keep them safe. And we can do both those things by limiting our interactions during this long weekend, by making sure that we leave no trace when we go into our cabins to enjoy the long weekend. So I encourage all Manitobans to do that. And I know that Northern Ontario they don't want to close down the border. That isn't what they're after. What they're after is to make sure that their local hospital isn't overrun, to make sure that their local people aren't infected as a consequence of too much interaction with the people who are visiting their cottages and cabins. That's why I say leave no trace.
And when it comes to discussions with municipal leaders, provincial leaders from that region, when it comes to reopening plans, the connection between these two areas is going to be very tight moving forward, I assume. What has been discussed thus far, and I guess any discussions on working together moving forward?
Yeah, we've had good interaction. My deputy premiers had direct contact with their MPP, I should say, Mr. Rickford, and Municipal Minister Rochelle Squires has been in direct contact repeatedly with Kenora's mayor and others. I'm on calls with Premier Ford, and we have addressed this issue together. So we're continuing to keep the dialogue going. We've been fortunate that people have been so respectful thus far. We know there'll be increased traffic this coming weekend. We just want to make sure that people remember to keep these fundamentals that have kept our borders open going as we protect each other.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Larry.
Premier Larry Kush of Free Press. Is David McLaughlin still receiving any kind of compensation from the PC party in any capacity, including travel expenses or subsidies of any sort?
Not to my knowledge, Larry, and we're fortunate to have Mr. McLaughlin willing to take on the position of Clerk of the Executive Council. He brings with him a tremendous background of experience in both the civil service and in partisan service as well. And like most of the previous clerks of the Executive Council, he has the ability now to lead us in a way that others maybe didn't have in terms of his background of experience, his wealth of experience in a broad range of important public policy areas.
My follow-up is, will Mr. McLaughlin be expected to live in Winnipeg?
Well, yes, in Manitoba. I understand his plan is to live in Winnipeg. And also, I think it's important to know that he is here now and he is socially isolating to make sure that he doesn't infect me or anyone else with his maritime background. But that being said, he is going to be ready to serve. And I think I'd be remiss in not saying how thankful I am for, and I think on behalf of the people of Manitoba, I should thank Fred Meyer for his service as our clerk. He's done a tremendous job. He's been a pleasure to work with. Absolute consummate professionalism, and I know that Red River Community College is going to benefit from the wealth of experience he brings, and I congratulate Fred and I thank him very, very much for his service. It's been an honor and privilege to work with him.
From Global, Brittany.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Brittany from Global News. When we heard from the mayor yesterday, we were concerned that only businesses were really being looked at or inspected, and Winnipeg Police have said that it's not their directive or their responsibility. Has that now changed? Are police going to be actively enforcing these health orders?
Well, I won't speak to what the police do, Brittany, because I think that is entirely their responsibility. I would say they are empowered to issue, if they wish, to issue tickets, but we all understand the police have many other responsibilities in addition to dealing with those who aren't smart enough to understand that you have to social distance to protect yourself and others at this time. That being said, our legislative initiatives over the last few weeks, the regulations we've developed around additional enforcement, the expansion by hundreds of people of the number of people who can enforce and who can, if necessary, give tickets, tell you that we're very sincere in making the effort to beef up that enforcement because of the sad few who refuse to be responsible enough to do the right thing.
Thank you. My other one is on how people can contact the province or the city, because the enforcement number was a voicemail and an email address. We've heard from people that it just isn't working. They aren't able to get in contact with somebody quick enough for them to actually get to any of these locations to check out people who might not be complying. Is there going to be a different system put in place where this can happen more quickly?
Well, I would just say that Operation Safe Apart, which is that I referenced earlier, Brittany, which is the collection of, and I thank them, the volunteers who are helping us to get the word out and can also give instruction for ticketing, can be notified. In Winnipeg, reports of non-compliance can be made by calling 311, or if you want to email, it's 311@winnipeg.ca, or you can go to Twitter at City of Winnipeg. Outside of Winnipeg, if you want to make a report of non-compliance, you can do that at the Manitoba Government Inquiry Line, and that is 204-945-3744, and that's toll-free. at 1-866, this number, toll-free, 1-866-626-4862, or you can go by email to mgi at gov.mb.ca, and you can notify us of non-compliance that way. But I would repeat again that if you, in addition, sorry, I left this out. If you have information on establishment closures, tickets, and so on, and you want to look for information on what's happened in respect of the enforcement, you can also go. This is updated regularly. You can go to https www.gov.mb.ca health/public health/environmental health/protection/report. Now, if you want me to repeat that, it's going to use up the rest of the news conference, so I'd probably just say, if you need more information, get a hold of us and we'll get it to you.
From the Brandon Sun, Drew.
Thank you. It's Drew May at the Brandon Sun here. Mr. Premier, on the announcement this morning that some national parks will partially reopen on June 1st, we of course do have a few in Manitoba. Does that give you any concern about social distancing or any kind of concerns there?
Well, it's a healthy concern. I'm glad that the federal government is taking steps to open national parks. They're beautiful, and we are blessed with some really awesome places for our families to visit and enjoy, and for us to get out in the fresh air. So I'm really glad of that. But I do know, of course, that it will result in the possibility of increased interaction among people. That being said, the federal government's deemed this a risk worth taking, and I'm glad they've taken the steps that they have. I would just again encourage Manitobans to make sure that they practice safe social distancing, and that they make sure that they're staying home if they're sick and not exposing themselves and others to additional risks as we get out in the fresh air in this beautiful Manitoba spring, possibly at a national park.
Thank you. And my second question, the provincial state of emergency is currently set to expire on May 18th. With that date coming up, at this point, are you considering extending it? And if so, for how long?
Well, those discussions are underway, Drew. I can only say that we're going to put safety first, and we're going to keep it first, because we've seen what happens when that doesn't happen in other jurisdictions, and nobody wants that. As frustrating and as hard as it is to admit, we can't go back to some of the ways we've been doing things in the past right away, and so we're going to go cautiously, and we hope progressively back to reopening our economy and back to more of the social interactions that help make life so great and that many of us have missed so much over the last while.
From CJOB, Diana.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Diana here from 680 CJOB. Yesterday, the U of M announced it's going to be offering the vast majority of its fall courses online. But that announcement also has a lot of parents of younger kids wondering about whether school for elementary, middle school, and high school students will be in person this fall as well. So obviously it's May now. Is there anything on your radar that would give you pause about the start of these schools in September happening in person? And what are you telling Manitobans today kind of about what the fall looks like?
Well, probably not too much today, but I can tell you that obviously these things are under discussion and very, very high priority. I would say we've already had initial discussions. Minister Eichler's had initial discussions and regular ongoing discussions with post-secondary leaders on how we can facilitate some of the dynamic challenges that we have to face together. I would mention again, because it's been misrepresented in the past, that the supports for post-secondary educational institutions are going to be strengthened come the new year because of the realities of new services having to be offered by them. And so that dialogue is underway as we speak. We're looking for savings from short-term shutdown that we can redirect into higher priority areas later. Some of those may well be the very same post-secondary institutions that are able to find savings right now. On the K-12 front, I know that Minister Gertsen has been working diligently with his team, and I appreciate and thank all of the educational leaders, not only within our government, but throughout the province, as well as all the parents, the parent-teacher associations, the school trustees, the administrators, who have all been part of this very, very historic challenge to keep offering educational opportunities of good quality to our children. So this is a priority for our government. I believe it's a very high priority for Manitobans that we continue to maximize the abilities that our young people need to develop in themselves as we move forward.
And then just as a follow-up with respect to the announcement today, obviously now we're going to have upwards of 3,000 personnel who can enforce the public health order. Do we really have that many sort of inspectors, officers for these things already?
Oh, well, the bulk of that 3,000 are police people, men and women who've already had the ability to do these things, but they have many, many other duties in addition, obviously, to just going after someone who's ignoring social distancing rules. That is an important task, and so this is why we've added another several hundred people, empowered them, given them training so that we have relative uniformity throughout our policing. We've had a table that's been gathering, which includes the police services, but many, many others. I don't know if I have any more detail right with me here, but I can tell you that they've been meeting on a regular basis, virtually, to discuss and develop these plans. And so this has been ongoing. The beefing up strategies that have taken place over the last several weeks have equipped us now to be able to make this announcement today about the strengthening of our ability to enforce the necessary public health orders to keep us all safe.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Scott.
Well, Premier Scott Bell from Winnipeg Sun. We're just over 2 months into this or so. Why, obviously you're beefing up enforcement, but why is education and all that still a priority over fines when we're so far into this and the messaging has been, beaten into people over and over again?
Well, Scott, I think sometimes it's frustrating, but it's necessary to repeat messages even when they're fundamentally so apparent to most of us. They have to be repeated. But clearly this announcement today is about enforcement. The educational component has been a key part, and it's going to continue to be a key part as we move forward, because some people just need to have a message repeated again and again. That's why people buy advertising, I suppose, right? So the fact of the matter is we have to keep on with the educational challenges, but we have to also make sure that there is enforcement there. That's why we've added several hundred people to the enforcement ranks through the measures we've taken in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and my follow-up is Alberta is recommending today cohort families for other families to be able to get together with. Is that an option that the province has talked about, or something that they would recommend? Especially maybe over something like a long weekend?
Yeah, it's an important issue, and it's one Dr. Roussen's going to be continuing to address. I'll let our public health experts take the lead on the specifics around things like this, Scott, but I think it's important to know that Dr. Roussen will be available to you later today, and you'll be able to ask, not today, tomorrow, I'm sorry, and he'll be able to answer that specific question for you tomorrow.
From CBC Radio Canada, Patrick.
Bonjour, Mr. Pallister. Patrick Foucault, Radio-Canada. Do you have any idea of how many fines were given and if there were any arrests or imprisonment because somebody didn't respect the orders?
I think we can get that information for you, Patrick. That would be information that's available. I'm not aware of any imprisonments, but I am aware of a number of fines and tickets that have been issued, and we can get you that information to answer your question. I would go further, though, and say as much as we're increasing the ability to enforce, it would be my hope that it's not necessary. I would hope that Manitobans would abide by the proper rules and that they would respect themselves and each other. But that being said, the enforcement that we've added and we're announcing today is going to be there, and those who might choose to think they can disregard these rules may find that they're lighter in the pocketbook as a direct consequence of ignoring these rules and the health and well-being of themselves and others.
Thank you. My other question would be 10 days after the beginning of phase one of the reopening of the economy. I know officials said they are monitoring the situation closely. I was wondering, did you see or hear anything from people around you, from your team, that concerns you in terms of certain problematic situations or clients or employees of open businesses who are not respecting the rules?
I haven't had an indication of a significant upswing in aberrant behavior, if I could describe it that way, but we are monitoring the situation and again publicizing the data, so you'll be able to monitor the trends as we go forward. The opportunity to go outside as the weather improves is obviously going to be one that people want to avail themselves of, and that does bring to mind the possibility that people might, because of the increasing frequency of outdoor activity, might be more inclined to disregard the rules. We hope that's not the case, and this is why the timing of this announcement is in part influenced by the very real probability that more people will be getting outside and as we turn to better weather, and the May long weekend is obviously a very important time of year for that to be pursued by most Manitobans.
From CBC Manitoba, Bart.
Mr. Premier, will designated provincial officials be enforcing physical distancing violations in the city of Winnipeg?
Yeah, that's the intention, Bart, and that's why we're making the announcement today. We've been able, through regulations just adopted this week as a consequence of legislation just adopted a few days ago, we're now able to give that power more broadly. And so, as I said earlier, we have a number of other officials now that are able to participate in the enforcement. We expect that that will be the case.
Thank you for that. This morning, Jake Lewell from Manitoba Hydro informed employees that they offered 8% wage rollback. That was rejected. The province demanded layoffs. Why was that?
That's not true. We didn't demand layoffs. What we have never demanded is layoffs. What we prefer, and what I have urged Hydro to do, and what I would urge the unions to do, is get back to the table and avoid layoffs. And I would prefer that we do work share. The work share arrangement is one that can be funded in part by money we've set aside for that very reason. For example, over the last 10 years, we put $2 billion of our money into the EI fund. This is not federal. People keep saying it's federal money. It's not federal money, it's our money. We set it aside so we could use it when there was less work. And that's exactly what should be happening now. So I would encourage Hydro and I would encourage their unions to discuss this and to avail themselves of the opportunity to do work share arrangements. The federal government has graciously agreed to allow that to happen. It is happening in other public sector circumstances and in Crown corporations. And although we have limited our impact on, in terms of layoffs, as you well know, in Manitoba more than most other jurisdictions, I would like to see it limited even more by the use of a work share arrangement. And so I'm proud and pleased with the progress we've made in maintaining our public service, and I'd like to see more people stay at work as opposed to layoffs. So that's my hope.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Premier, you mentioned training for the food safety inspectors and liquor inspectors and people who are now going to be moved into enforcing the public health orders for the pandemic. Will these people have powers to detain or arrest people, or is it simply education and handing out fines?
That's a really good question, Steve. In terms of the ability to arrest, I am not 100% sure, so let's find out. As far as the fining piece, that is absolutely what they'll have the power to do. And I would mention that our discussions and this process that we've engaged in, that we've compressed into the last number of days, was participated in by people from all across, not just provincial government and conservation department, finance department, health, seniors, Indigenous, infrastructure, justice, municipal relations, but it was also at the table. We got the input of D Division RCMP, City of Brandon, Morden, Winkler. City of Winnipeg was involved at every step of the way. Various municipalities around the province and our Manitoba First Nations police force. So we have increased ability through a number of hundreds of different government positions to now do a better job of. We've stepped up that enforcement. As far as the jail issue, arrest issue, I'm sorry, I will inquire and we'll find out for you, Steve.
Thanks. My follow-up is a follow-up to Larry's question from way back regarding Mr. McLaughlin. It's a matter of public record that he received compensation for travel in his previous role. Are taxpayers going to be covering any travel or commuting expenses for Mr. McLaughlin to Ottawa or another city?
Travel, no, not now, not in the future. As far as moving expenses, no more than any other civil servant would receive.
From CTV Winnipeg, Jeff.
Oh, hi, Mr. Premier, Jeff Gill, CTV. I just want to be clear on your answer to Bart's, I think it was his first question.
Sure.
So of the new the people that you've named today that can issue fines, whether it's a liquor inspector, health and safety, they'll be able to, say, go to the grounds of the legislature where we saw a protest last weekend, or if there were 100 people on a sidewalk, let's just say in the city of Winnipeg, they'll be able to fine people. It won't just be the police. These people will have the authority beyond their normal scope of practice.
Yes.
Thank you for that. My follow-up is bylaw officers with the city of Winnipeg can only, my understanding is, issue the court notices in city parks. That's where. Is there any thought to maybe giving bylaw officers in the city of Winnipeg more powers?
Well, the City of Winnipeg's been at the table. I'm not sure if that was one of their major requests or not. What we're announcing today, of course, is the beefing up of hundreds of other positions, many of them, most of them, in fact, within the provincial government's employ, to be able to offer protection and deterrence. But I should repeat, in addition, we also are thankful for the Help Next Door capacity to recruit additional volunteers as well. And we thank the volunteers who've been working, whether it's Bear Clan or Citizens on Patrol, for beefing up that capability as well. Our officials will be able to issue tickets. Volunteers will be able to issue educational information and act as a deterrent, and also to essentially turn in someone who has violated the distancing rules as well. So we have a very strengthened capacity to offer greater protection to all of us because of the sad misconduct of just a few. Just want to say thanks to everybody, and I want to say just be careful and be safe out there this weekend, and make sure that you are part of the recovery and making sure that the road to recovery can continue. Because we do not want a COVID comeback here. Together we can beat this thing. Thank you.